Hi, today on Kenya Pioneers, we have Dr. Florence Wambogo, pioneer in the area of agriculture. And as we get to hear more, karibuni. Karibu, Daktari.
Asante.
Okay, now, Daktari, you were among the pioneers to attend the University of Nairobi. You are also a founder director and chief executive officer of Africa Harvest Biotech Foundation International. Could you please tell us a little bit more about your maybe childhood, upbringing, and school life?
Well, I came up as a child after the post-colonial Kenya. As soon as we attained independence, I was a young girl, and I must say that at that particular time, they were a very challenging time, because many of the ladies, many women have been left. Their husbands have been gone to detention camps. Were just coming back. And many women, my mother and aunts, were very much raising children of their own, because many of the fathers had gone out, or they're working in citrus farms, and food was very scarce. It was a very challenging time. But at the same time, people realizing the importance of education. The girl education was not considered to be very important, because of course there's competition and not enough money. Girls were very seen as people to be got married, and the dowry was being looked at something that is an income to the family. And so I really must say God have been faithful and good to me, that my mom and the people around her were able to get me educated.
Okay. And what were your favorite subjects in school, and did you always perform well in them?
I always, I remember when growing up, I would go to the garden with my mom, and I was so much interested in biology, crops. I always felt like if I learn more, I can get more food from the garden, and I always be left there trying to find the bugs, doing what. I had so much interest with agriculture, very much interest with the crops, and so I knew that's what I wanted to do. I want to be involved in food. I wanted so much to. I always connected something like science would help in increasing food. And I felt like maybe if I fought the bugs and what the insects are destroying our food crops, that would help to increase the food that we were going to eat. Many times we were hungry, we didn't have enough to eat, and so on. And I was like, maybe if I studied, that could contribute to the increase in food production. So that's a motivation I had at a very early stage. And I always used to accompany my mother to the garden, to the market after school. So I was always had this desire for science, allowed agriculture, allowed food and all that. And that's why my heart has always been in that area. Yeah.
Okay. And what about your parents? Did they encourage you to pursue these subjects while you were in school?
My mother could not read and write, but somehow she was able to hear when we were talking English with my brothers. And come from a big family of 10. I've got 6 brothers, although they're not all alive, and sisters. I was number 6. So I was not in any advantaged position. But my mother was somehow really zeroed on me, and this one had to study. For whatever reason, I just feel God have been on my side, because not many girls were going to university. I was among maybe 1, 2 girls who went to university from our village. And even going to the secondary school, forget university, going to secondary school was a big journey. You are leaving home for the first time. And at that particular time, there were not many girls going to study. But I felt there was an encouragement, especially from my mother. She was very inspired that I should study. I don't know why, but she pushed me, talked to me about avoiding childhood or early pregnancy, or all things the mother should be talking to their girls. My mother did, which I really appreciate now when I look back. And that just continuously motivated me to study. She always told me, if you study, you'll be different. Your life will be different from mine. You'll be able to come back and help people in the village. You'll be able to help the communities. She kept on talking to me not only about studying, but what education could do, not just for me, but for the communities around us. Yeah.
Okay, great. And what would you say about the role of parents and teachers, etc., in the foundational education of a child? Is mentoring important to the society?
Oh, yes, it's absolutely very important. I was inspired when I went to Kabare Girls High School. I met people like Michelle Mugo, people like Mrs. Jero, who is an educator. the teachers, and by the way, we were also interesting and many British teachers, because by the time I was going to school, we didn't have enough science teachers. I'd always wanted to do science. Many of our teachers were Peace Corps volunteers from England. And so in a certain way, I was privileged to be exposed at an early stage to international teachers, but more important, inspired by local teachers as well. And I remember when I saw someone like Michere, I was like, I didn't believe people. She was studied, by then she had a master's, we were going to do her PhD, so she began to talk to us girls about education, and we were so inspired. So teachers and parents and even neighbors are very, very important to what happened to the life of a young girl. Very, very important. How we talk to her, how we encourage her, role models, mentors are very, very important. They have all played a major role in my life. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What about, when did you decide on your career training, and what motivated you on this choice? Did you have any idea what future there was in this career of biotechnology?
I must say that biotechnology came later in my life. My inspiration was science and technology and all the related areas which could increase agriculture production. So when I joined university, I knew I wanted to be a scientist. And there's no question about that. I pursued a career in science, zoology, botany, and I, even when I went to have a chance to, my first job, I went to work with the Kenya Agriculture Research Institute in Mogoga as a researcher. I had this zeal to just learn more about science in the bigger picture, and I still believe today that science is important if we especially empower the farmers. And so my motivation was, okay, I'm pursuing science, but science for what? Science to help farmers to produce more food. And that was then, and is still important even up today. We still have to use science and put it in the hands of the farmers. That then it makes a difference. So that early belief I had is still true today. So biotechnology came later as one of the tools. I found that this is a tool that can play even a better role in terms of increasing agriculture production. But really I thought about it in the bigger picture of science and technology and new technologies and improved seeds, improved management, all the things that we think could really do to help the farmer to produce more food. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. What really is biotechnology, and what does it involve?
Okay, biotechnology is two words. Bio is life. Technology is just tools of science or technology. As we know, there are many things we call technology. And there are many forms of biotechnology. For example, when we make yogurt, we are using life, bacteria, life that make yogurt. That's familiar. When we make wine or even local brews, by the way, are all bio, because something makes them to ferment, even fermented porridge. And then, of course, the other forms of biotechnology which are more advanced. We have got something like tissue culture, which we have done with the banana in a big way. Still taking a small part of the plant, taking it to the laboratory, growing it in something we call like an artificial fertilizer. And there we were able to remove the diseases and pests, and then we'll introduce it back. Then we have the science of genetic engineering, which people are a bit afraid of or scared about, which is now being able to transfer the information about this, information about disease control from maybe from a bacteria to cotton or something else. So there are forms of biotechnology, from simple ones, people have done them all their lives, to some more sophisticated, which you have to do in the lab and maybe use they use what we call genetic engineering. So it's a very broad-based way. And depending on the level where we are, it has been used differently. As I see, the traditional brewers were always using even a lot of that, even cheese making. It's still part of biotech, you know, because you're using life form. And then depending on the countries, many of the African countries using tissue culture, which is now using a small tiny of the plant producing. It gives you ability, for example, in pyrethrum, we use in tissue culture in pyrethrum multiplication. Flower industries use a lot of that. Because, for example, from one banana, if you're using a sucker, you can only get one. But from tissue culture, you can get 1,000 of clean, healthy plants.
Yes.
And then, of course, the developed countries have been able to produce more of the, or use biotech to produce cotton that is resistant to insects or maize or that. And there are many, many countries globally now that are using biotechnology. Even here, Kenya Agriculture Research is researching. Myself, I've been a pioneer. I started in Kali as a scientist. And I'm still involved one way or another. Like now we are producing, we are developing sorghum that have got vitamin A together with many partners. So it's something that has been growing over time. It's not like for the last 20 years, there's a lot of have gone many acres, over 1 billion acres. There's a lot of products coming out of biotechnology. So it's a very broad-based science. Over 29 countries now are involved in biotechnology, yes, globally. You know, just America, Europe, Australia, Latin America, and even here in Africa, we have got South Africa, Egypt, Burkina Faso, Kenya. I mean, it's going slowly, but it's going there.
It's going there.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, those are many countries. I actually
Yeah.
thought maybe it was just a few.
No, it's many countries, yeah.
All right. Okay. So what are some of the organizations you've worked with before?
Well, I have a long history. I started in my career with the Kenya Agriculture Research Institute, and then I went to England and did a PhD and also did some work there on research on, was researching on sweet potatoes. I then went to US and as a postdoc, post-PhD for 3 years. I'd worked with the private sector companies there. And then I came back to Kenya as a pioneer and started an organization called ISAAA that was looking at technology transfer, helping farmers. I worked for 7 years. And then from there is when I resigned and I started Africa Harvest. So I've been a risk taker, maybe a person who moves but really I've kept the career going all across. I've been moving on the science career. My interest has always been on the area of science. I've mentored many people in every organization. I had many student fellows. Even today in Africa, we are still seeking student fellowships and training and setting people. And I must say that in Africa Harvest, we have been now over, we started in 2002, over 10 years now. We done quite a lot, but very much focusing again on food security.
Food security.
We're also in several countries, not just in Kenya alone. We're in Nigeria, we're in several African countries, South Africa, Malawi. We are moving to the DRC, and there's a lot of interest across Africa for what Africa, in Tanzania. Our products are being very much appreciated because we not just focus on science, we focus on the whole value chain.
Okay.
If you're introducing, for example, tissue culture banana, we introduce the information about the product, because we know that it's not something farmers are familiar with. Some of them are smallholder farmers, some are women, and women are youth, and even men. We don't discriminate. But beyond the information, then we bring in private sector partners who will deliver the product. Maybe this from laboratory, and then we go to the next level, third level, where we try to help with the good agronomic practice. Agronomy is like use of fertilizer, manure, water, pest control, so that you can increase productivity.
Okay.
And then we help with the marketing.
Oh, you also do marketing?
Yeah, we operate the whole value chain so that the farmer is able to benefit not just from the improved genetics, but also from the ability to market their product.
Okay.
Currently, we also work with the sorghum in the Makueni area, Tharaka, Central Kitui, Makueni, and we are introducing improved varieties of sorghum, gadam, others that are needed just not for breweries, but also for animal feed, for food. And we are working with several millers. We are working with the flour industry, and we do exactly the same. We introduce, we give information about the improved product. We help to communicate about the good agronomy so that there's increased productivity. And then we help in the marketing and value adding and all that. We are training a lot of youth in keeping chicken and feeding with the sorghum and selling eggs and all that. Oh. We are working with the women groups and helping in so many areas. So it really not have been a science for the sake of science. It's always looking at how can science deliver? How can science help the grassroots communities? How can the science improve the livelihoods of people? And not only that, how can it be done in a sustainable way so that when you work with the community, they're not going to go back to the poverty, vicious poverty cycle. That by intervention, what Africa Harvest does, they can say some people did something differently. And again, even Africa Harvest, we don't work alone. We work with the Minister of Agriculture, we work with other partners, we work with the CARI. We find where do we have a comparative advantage. And we find our strength is very much in the delivery of the improved products from science. Our comparative advantage is very much on thinking about sustainability. Our comparative advantage is thinking about the whole value chain. Our comparative advantage is thinking about women. I always think about my mom, who brought me up, and the other women in the village, and the promise I made that, you know, I'll come back with the science and do something. And that really have kept me very much moving forward.